A lot of people are out there in social media world asking about, what about the arrow on your fuel filter? What does it mean, and does it even matter? Well, I'll tell you, it does. And two guys out there, Steve from Steve's Small Engine Saloon and Terrell, have actually covered this a little bit. But today we're going to talk about it. We're going to show you a few things on the filters and what you need to look out for. We're going to start with our common filters right here. You've probably seen this on every lawnmower, every snowblower. You know, it's a very old filter that's been around for years. Particularly this one. This is your common screen mesh filter. So if you look in here, all it is just a little mesh. It'll filter out about 75 microns. It's a good filter. It's for a gravity feed. And this is kind of what the system is, where gravity is kind of pushing down the fluid. Very common, you know, you'll see sometimes on a snowblower, a guy will just cut the line and add one just to get some of the particulates out. The white filter, what does this mean? Well, this is for a fuel pump. So typically getting a little bit larger horsepower. Now you're talking probably like on a lawn tractor, you're talking on a 0 turn. This has got an element inside of this that's going to filter about 150 microns. And both of these, doesn't matter which way you put them, it's going to filter out the fuel. That's what you want to do with these two filters. Now, when we're talking about these type of filters, this is another common lawn tractor one. This is where you start seeing that arrow. So that arrow actually tells you which way to put the fuel filter. When we're getting a lot of questions, a lot of people say, well, does the arrow matter? Well, it does and it doesn't. I'll tell you, basically, the filter will filter out any fuel you have. But what it does do is, by having some space in the top, as the filter builds up with some particulates, you'll be able to see it. As I'll show you here, when we talk about these filters, if you change around the way that this thing filtered and you were pumping the fuel through this way, you'd quickly build up all the particulates on the top of the element, and you'd probably clog this up pretty quick, where this can now sit and live in there and you can see this stuff. So I know a lot of you guys aren't changing your filters every year. Every 4 or 5 years, you put in a filter and at least you'll be able to see everything. The other big conversation is the pleating. A lot of guys say, oh, well, you know, these filters are better because there's more pleating. And I know there's a lot of engineers out there that will tell you, you know, left or right on these things, but I'll tell you, it's not a spaceship like Terrell says. So this is a good example of a very nice filter come from a company called Elefic. A lot of pleating, a lot of surface. This is just a different brand that we get, you know, from another aftermarket company. Filters out the same microns. So it's just more surface area that you have here that things can attach to it. But when you look at these filters, kind of like we were saying here, you know, this plugs into that. So if the fuel's going through here, you're going to plug that up pretty quick and then you won't know what's going on inside. That's why they do it this way. So when you're looking at the filter, you can see the outside. So from a use standpoint, yes, it'll filter out the fuel. It's more of just a visual thing, and that coming directly from the manufacturer. Being at Pro Parts, we carry a lot of different brands of engines. So we have Briggs, Cowie, Kohler, Honda, Yanmar, we have Kubota. All of them have their own filters. They're kind of all buying them from the same guys. There's maybe one guy in India that makes them a little bit better than guys in China. There's probably this guy that comes from Spain. Now this is for diesel fuel. This is a little bit different of an animal, but again, you got arrows on it. So if we're going to plug this into a fuel tank, you got to think of the direction of the flow. So the gas is going this way. Now, this type of filter or any of these filters, you're going to put above the fuel pump. So it's going to go from the gas tank to the filter to your fuel pump. Now, could you use one of these filters on a carbureted unit? You probably could. I can tell you it won't filter out the fuel as well. You'll probably get some starvation issues because what's going to happen is it can't draw the fuel as quickly as the engine needs it. And that's why they have a fuel pump type filter. I'll show you here. So we plug this thing in. We have 10 micron filter. This one's made in India. Fuel's going this way. So obviously we'll plug this in. So as soon as it fills up, it starts filtering out. Now, if we were to flip the filter around, you'll see that it'll still filter. Again, you want to do what the manufacturer's suggesting, but really you kind of can't screw it up. There's one filter here, the Kawasaki filter, that is a little more directional because it's a very, very tight pleating. Kawasaki probably makes some of the best filters out there. Their pleating's a little tighter, so when you do flip the direction, it takes a little bit, but it also will filter out. Now all of these fit a 1/4 inch hose. They'll fit a 5/16 fuel hose. That's a very standard hose in the industry. So this is basically all the fuel filters that are out there. There's probably 1 or 2 more I've missed, but most of these, you're gonna know this is for our EFI. This is for our fuel pump series, basically diesel fuel. Now, the last but least thing is a lot of people say, well, why isn't there a fuel filter on a snowblower? Well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's no contaminants, there's not a lot of dust in the air. So the only stuff that's going to be coming is probably from your actual gas can. So you always want to check your gas cans. A lot of times on a snowblower, the fuel filter is built into the tank, and it's just a filter that goes up inside the tank, a little mesh screen. It's actually why this tank was here in service, because the screen itself collapsed on itself and plugged up the tank. And unfortunately, there's no way really to replace that without it leaking. So it requires a new tank. This is your traditional Briggs & Stratton engine. Basically, there's no filter up here. So a lot of times, a lot of guys will just cut a filter in, and that's all that happens there. That's the big deal on fuel filters. Really, the arrow isn't a huge deal, but you do want to pay attention to it more for your own knowledge and more so you can see yourself what's going on in your filter. All right, guys, that was today's video on fuel filters. As always, like, follow, share, subscribe to all of our channels. Help us out, keep us moving so we could do more videos like this.